Well, hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Simeon here with you. I wanted to do just kind of a mini update on the Phenomecon Conference in Vernal, Utah. A couple of weeks ago, I had the chance to be there for a couple of the days, and I wanted to share some of my impressions from two of the presentations that I saw. Erik from Skinwalker Ranch, one of their chief scientists over there who you're familiar with, and also Jay Stratton, who also has worked with Skinwalker Ranch. He's mentioned in the book. Skinwalkers at the Pentagon by James Lakatsky, and he's someone that was involved in the founding of the UAP task force, and previous to that, OSAP and ATIP within the Pentagon. So the Vernal Conference has a lot of different speakers there. There are people talking, of course, about Skinwalker Ranch and portal type areas. Other presentations include last year, when I was invited to be there for the debut of Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot movie. And I also happened to be in the Bradshaw Ranch movie by Alan Margula and Ron Meyer about the ranch in Sedona, Arizona, with very interesting properties to it. There's presentations about those sorts of areas and about ancient archaeology, history, and then there are usually some Bigfoot type presentations. Also people from some of the Bigfoot TV shows, Expedition Bigfoot, and other shows. And I enjoyed being there last year, so I thought I would go again just for part of it, as my schedule allowed, just to catch up with people and see, some of the new information. And so Erik Bard's presentation was interesting in that he focused on some of the strange electromagnetic phenomena around Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, and this is personally interesting to me just because of 2 decades of strange electromagnetic phenomena around crop circles, mostly in the UK, but some here in the US, including ones that we've built experimentally with the farmers' permission, even in some cases when the farmers came out and helped us make the circles to see if we could recreate some of these strange electromagnetic effects, which I've documented and talked about in my other videos and in Opening Minds. And so what Erik Bard talked about, it's always very reminiscent of those crop circle type phenomena. He talked about the first time he went out there with Brandon Fugel, the new owner of the ranch, and he had these weird sort of distortion effects across his camera viewfinder, a kind of a pink and grayish pixelated band of distortion at one area on the ranch. And he attempted to reproduce it, and he sort of could reproduce it by putting the camera near a very small magnet. Now, this, again, is something that we've seen in some of the crop circles. I'm not saying it's like every single one, but in some of them, we would get some of these strange effects. It wasn't the same type of banding that Erik saw, but people would have strange shapes show up in their viewfinders and just have the camera basically malfunction, just like a whole wide range of EM distorting malfunctions, which would keep the camera from operating properly. And this is one of the things that Erik found with this particular camera that sort of, it got him hooked into being at Skinwalker. And that's what happened to us around crop circles. So there's this kind of a similarity there. And then in the second part of his presentation, he talked about this very strange electrical storm that came over the area one day. And he showed this sequence of photos where it turned from ordinary linear lightning into more of a ball type shape. But I mean, a really huge ball up in the sky. It kind of morphed into something really strange looking and more spherical. And this was a storm, he said, it was so intense, it was just constant lightning. You've probably experienced this a couple times in your life. They're not that common, but they happen sometimes where the lightning just doesn't stop. And then he noticed that one of his computers wasn't operating properly. It kind of went into this reboot cycle and it would never reboot. And when he took the computer back, they found that just the chip, he showed the photo of it, had been completely dustified. The processing chip of his desktop computer no longer existed. It had just been turned to sort of a kind of a swirling dust. But everything else in the computer seemingly was fine, which again is very interesting and reminiscent of ball lightning types of phenomena. If you've taken a look at any of this literature, listened to any of my videos here on this channel, or Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project channel, you'll know that ball lightning, because it's operating at a macroscopic quantum level, it's going to interact with specific components of electrical and electronic equipment, which is, I mean, it's strange, but that's what it does. If you read the cases of ball lightning, many of them from Russian researchers like V.L. Bychkov and others in his books about ball lightning, and many other cases over the years, George Egli, the Hungarian ball lightning researcher, Ken Shoulders, for a kind of a laboratory level look at this phenomena. These ball lightnings and micro ball lightnings will be attracted to specific things and vaporize them, dustify them, or completely make specific components of equipment disappear, which, I mean, is just really strange. It's not like it'll just completely fry a circuit. I mean, ball lightning can do that, micro ball lightning. It can just go through and damage something as if it was, discharging a lot of electricity. But another one of these effects is having very specific components disappear. People's necklaces disappearing off their neck and just leaving a kind of a black ash, rings, things like this. So when I heard Erik talking about just one component in the computer being dustified, which is also a feature of tornadoes, by the way, it can cause things to dustify, and kind of in a very mysterious way. That dustification process is often indicative of contact with coherent matter, which is matter that is all sort of frequency aligned and begins to act more like a wave type form than particles. And that aspect of coherent matter affecting one particular component versus another is just something that's very prevalent in interactions, people's interactions with ball lightning. Apart from the sort of laser-like cuts and things like that can also go along with ball lightning and masers and related phenomena. So that was very interesting listening to Erik talk about it. I don't know if he'd agree that it was a ball lightning type effect. It's just very reminiscent of ball lightning effects. And here he's showing us this huge slide sequence of lightning morphing into a big ball type structure that seems a lot like a ball lightning, even though ball lightning, I mean, you have to understand it's usually smaller, like maybe a few inches across, grapefruit size. I mean, it can be bigger, but this one was really, really huge. So the other presentation that I just wanted to talk about was Jay Stratton. Jay Stratton did not want anyone taping this lecture, taking photographs, or anything like that, because he's still very sensitive about his role in UFO disclosure that's happening right now, and he doesn't want to affect things adversely against disclosure. So he gave us this presentation, which I got a chance to talk to him last year, just, personally in the conference hall. And it's just very interesting how much behind the scenes efforts have gone into UFO disclosure. He worked with Lou Elizondo. You might be familiar with Lou's new book, Imminent, which I've been listening to on audio format. And Jay and Lou worked together on both sides, and it was part of Lou's plan when he quit working for the Pentagon because of his frustration of lack of transparency over what he says is UFO, UAP phenomena, that Jay was still working there until recently on the inside, so they could kind of work both sides of the fence. And Jay talked about the early years looking for some UFO programming. And the UAP task force is created on a directive from Congress for the Pentagon to have more UFO, UAP transparency. So this is happening from the time of OSAP into ATIP into UAP Task Force 2016 and forward. And Jay Stratton was part of this whole thing. I mean, going all the way back to Lukatsky's book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. He's the analyst in the book given the name Axelrod. Not the same Axelrod as Ingo Swann's book, Penetration, but another Axelrod, just the name. And he described, walking down that path at Skinwalker Ranch and encountering this very darker than dark shape, which kind of emanated a type of fear for the analyst. They couldn't get too close to it. I had asked him if he thought that was stealth ball lightning, black ball lightning, and he wasn't quite sure. And he said it looked like that, but doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is, which is a good point. But the main point I got from Jay's presentation was that the barriers to disclosure, Jay believes, having worked in the Pentagon and having set up these briefings, classified briefings for Congress since 2017, since the New York Times article came out in December 2017. He feels that the barrier to us having more of a public discussion about this topic is not due to some sort of secret cabal, some MJ-12 group or something like that doesn't want us to know the truth. He thinks it has more to do just with bureaucratic inertia and stupidity and ego. And he gave us examples of being in some of these Pentagon meetings where he's the guy talking about UFOs, and the other people in the room who are probably tasked with more mundane aspects of keeping the military going have this kind of jealousy over the fact that you're getting all this attention with your cool state-of-the-art topic, and they're involved, in something that's just much more routine, like supply and maintenance of aircraft and airplanes, and it's just not as exciting as their stuff, so they have this resentment towards you and resentment towards the topic. Now, I think that's a very interesting angle on this whole aspect of what could slow the disclosure process down. Because in Lou Elizondo's book, Imminent, he talks about this group of fundamentalist Christians within the Pentagon that he called the Collins elite. And Eric Davis, who also worked for the Air Force, he was the author of that more recent paper on ball lightning from 2003. And he also has talked about this Collins elite, like people that feel that there's something really satanic about UFOs, that it's sort of anti-religious and that you shouldn't talk about it. And Lou, in his book Imminent, gives examples of people who came up to him, people he worked with or worked for, and who said, Lou, you shouldn't be studying this. You know, these are just demons, whatever that means. And you shouldn't look at it. And Lou says he was appalled by this sort of anti-analytical, anti-intelligence attitude within the intelligence community. Like there's something that they wouldn't look at because they felt it just violated their religious beliefs. So Jay said that might have been true at the very beginning in the OSAP days, but he didn't think that was the issue anymore, which is just very interesting, don't you think? That there's just different points of view, even of people working with UFO disclosure for the benefit of the public, don't have agreement about what the obstacles are. And I find it very plausible that it could just be a sort of a bureaucratic intransigence against new topics, because we know that bureaucrats don't like having their apple carts upset because they work in these huge organizations. And once you work your way up into those organizations, you probably don't want things to change very much because you've got your retirement plans and promotions and things that are based on the status quo staying the same. And if new people come along with new topics who seem like, to you, like heretical revolutionaries with their new ideas and their new subject matter, even something like UFOs, I mean, we see this in history of science all the time, then that could be a good reason why you just wouldn't want to have more attention, more resources, and more money flowing in that direction, because it doesn't really help your particular part of the organization that you're working for. And we know that bureaucrats within DC look down upon the elected officials because these bureaucrats, these insiders are there for decades, and the elected officials are there for 2, 4, 6 years in our country, in the US. So they don't even bother to brief these people, even if they know something that the elected officials also should know. So I think it's a very interesting angle on it, and that's sort of my main takeaway from Jay's lecture, is that yes, the phenomena is real. It does pose a threat to practice operations and other sorts of operations that we don't know about yet, because so much of the topic is still classified. I mean, the UFO topic is essentially a classified topic within the U.S. government. So the other takeaway from Jay Stratton's lecture is that there's a huge amount he didn't say because he can't say yet because of NDAs, and that there's a lot more coming out that we haven't heard from yet. That's the other takeaway from his lecture, is what he didn't say, because he said he couldn't talk about it. And these are obviously crash retrievals. That's the big topic here, is how many crash retrievals, bodies being recovered, living bodies, living biological material. I mean, this is a whole aspect of it that he had to skirt around, because we're told that UFO crashes are just highly classified subjects, and you are not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to talk about the specifics. So what this shows us is there's a lot more for us to learn about, and that we do have good people working who have worked within the government, within the Pentagon, who really think you and I do have the right to know about this. And there are a variety of reasons why we haven't heard about it yet. And it's not completely due to some sort of conspiracy of fundamentalists or just other types of people that don't want us knowing. It's just due to this molasses slow nature of super large organizations that tend to become just very conservative and very unwilling to look at new topics, to change policy, because there's just too many people that have these entrenched interests. You get the idea? Okay, thank you. Enough said on that. So that's my experience on Vernal. I've always enjoyed the Vernal Conference. I especially enjoyed the setting, and it's in northeastern Utah. not far from the Colorado border, and Dinosaur National Monument, which is what I discovered last year, the darkest dark skies within the U.S. National Park system in the lower 48. And that's why there's some dark sky events there as part of the Phenomecon Conference, which are extra events at night that you can go to. So it's a beautiful area, and there are also a lot of local Bigfoot stories. If you talk to people from the area at the conference, you will hear, even though it's a rather scrub desert sort of area with mountains nearby, there is a lot of Bigfoot activity that I've heard about happening around there from oil field workers. It's a big oil area, oil field workers and others, which is another interesting component in terms of the local history of the area and Bigfoot sightings all the way up to the present. So anyway, that's my report to you from Phenomecon. And if you're interested, please leave your comments, questions below. Thanks a lot. See you next video. Take care for now, and bye.